So one of the things that Leona is going to talk about in the next slides are contacting the media and doing interviews. I was really nervous to talk to the media. Like it's very daunting to go and talk and try to tell your story, but they want to hear stories. You know, they want to hear people. So that's sort of what Leona helped me with, and she like practiced with me, and we did these like practice sessions where she'd have a camera and she'd be videotaping me, and I don't even think that I've watched the video yet because it sort of makes me squirm still. But this is sort of, oh yeah, my big strategy was enlisting the volunteer time of a public relations expert. So these are some of the stories that we've done, and I think this is Leona's time now. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. We are running short on time, so I'm going to make this a little bit brief. I'm not going to tell Indigenous people how to tell stories. You can tell me how to tell stories. But basically, what this presentation is about is applying the innate storytelling techniques that Indigenous people have and sharing it with the media so that you can get support. And a news story is timing. There was a sense of urgency because I believe our first news story was like February 1st or 3rd. And then 2 weeks later, we were having a school board meeting.
Oh, November 1st. Yeah.
But I think I got in there I was towards the end, but it was, and prominence, who are the characters when you see something in the news, sometimes just because people are famous, like Donald Trump is in the news, it's because, well, he's Donald Trump. And human interest, you have to capture the emotions and what's interesting. And the significance of the story is there's a school that's going to close, and children, it could rip apart families. And because I'm going to back up a little bit. In public relations, we have a saying. Does the national news is defined as, does a housewife in Iowa, or in my case Utah, care about the story? And that's how I got really involved. Is Rhonda and I were talking, and for some reason I mentioned it to my mom, and she's like, Leona, you need help. Can't you do whatever you do in PR? Because my mom back in Utah, who couldn't tell you where Beaver was, and we didn't know any of the kids, she was just appalled that would even come up. So we told our story, and this is the pitch. It's also on the handout. And reading over the handout, I didn't talk about a chief. I talked about a mom. And the people can relate to a mom who's fighting to keep the school open. And this is probably just one of the first pitches I have. There are other variations, but I wanted to keep it simple for this presentation. And so I told the story of a mom with a 4-year-old daughter who didn't want her daughter to have to go into foster care, didn't want her daughter to go live with someone else, couldn't homeschool, and so she was fighting to keep the school open for her 4-year-old daughter. And so this is Rhonda and Elena, and the story was compelling. There was a heroine, Rhonda Pitka, and then there were the tragic victims, 4-year-old Elena and 8 kids in Beaver.
Okay. Do you see how that would really embarrass me? But she is able to spin this.
Is that the 8 and a half, the 4-year-old?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So we also worked with another one of our allies, which is the wife of the school teacher was extremely helpful and took cell phone video. And I'm going to play this. Whoops.
the play button.
So this is short, so we'll play it.
I matter. I matter. I matter. I matter. I matter. I matter. I matter.
It's a great video. How could you turn down those kids?
So because of that particular video, I got an hour and a half of public testimony at the school board meeting. They had never had an hour and a half of public testimony before at one of their meetings. So,
And the other thing we did was Rhonda sent me the agenda, and I posted that on Facebook. And then I wrote out the number, and then I posted on my personal Facebook account, and I tagged anyone who I thought would be interested in commenting or sharing. And there were 28 people that shared my post, and we had an unprecedented hour and a half of public testimony, including myself. I called into sick at work. And the other sneaky thing I did was I got reporters to call and listen in. It's a public meeting. So Rhonda and CATG had arranged for the KZPA, the radio station, to play it, to air it. And then I also got the Alaska Dispatch and the Fairbanks Daily Newsminer and a national newspaper that I'm still kind of working on, so I won't talk about it too much. But they called in and they listened to it. And I was texting Wes Morrow at the Newsminer, and they were pretty disgusted because how can you do that? So we did. And unfortunately, it's probably bigger news when a school is about to close than a school staying open. But we got front page twice in the Newsminer. We got the front page of the news section in the below the fold in the Alaska Dispatch. The Fairbanks Newsminer, because I forwarded on the information to Tom Hewitt, who is the editorial and opinion editor. He wrote an editorial on behalf of the Newsminer supporting keeping the school open and supporting our small schools. You can't buy that kind of coverage. You just, and even if we could,
I couldn't afford it.
no, there's no way. So, Rhonda, I'll play Rhonda's interview. Why is it this?
Oh, I'm not seeing this.
This is the Fairbanks Evening News.
People living in the village of Beaver are fighting to keep their school open. The school only has funding through the end of this semester, and with only 8 students is too short of the minimum needed to get state funding. Rhonda Pitka, first chief of Beaver Village Council, is leading the fight to help keep that school open until the end of the academic year. Her daughter Elena is 4 years old and starts kindergarten next fall. Elena and another student will increase the student count to the required 10. The Yukon Flats School Board is meeting tomorrow at 2 to hear testimony from those advocating to keep the school open through the end of the academic year. Pitka said a legislative proposal to raise the number of students to over 20 for a school to get funding would impact at least 60 Alaska villages.
Yeah.
It would either force children and their families to move or homeschool. And then the third option would be sending children, into foster care so they could go to school. That's not the best option ever. It's sort of a horrible option.
So if you remember from the pitch that I sent, they picked up on everything. A mom leading the fight, a 4-year-old daughter who is going to start kindergarten, calling in, and my regret is that I had 2 weeks, and I didn't have enough time to do what I really wanted to do and have more outreach. And it was a crunch. But we got 2 front page stories in the News Miner, statewide public radio. We got the Alaska Dispatch News. We got interest from a national news reporter, and then Oregon happened.
The radio.
Yeah, and then statewide radio, APRN. So we did well, and we did that by telling a story. And so if you want to do this, and my card is over there, it's also on the handout. If you need some help, email me, and I can help. But the number one important thing when you talk to a journalist is a story. The ultimate compliment that as a public relations person that I can get from a member of the press is, that's a great story. Angela works in PR, and she's nodding her head. It is. So tell a good story, and then make it short. 1 or 2 paragraphs. I didn't send out a big long thing. I just sent out just enough information to get them interested and build relationships. And I knew from my work that Tegan Hanlon and Wes Morrow were the education reporters for the News Miner. I knew that Dan Bross with KUAC would be my in into the APRN. So we are
Almost out of time.
Yeah, we are almost out of time. Does anyone have any questions?